Hello, bachas. Welcome back to the channel, the F in Physics, where the F in Physics stands for fun. Now, in today's revision series, we will cover a topic named force and pressure. So, force and pressure. Okay, and we will start with center of mass. So, sometimes I ask you the definition of center of mass. So, the definition is it is a point on the body where the entire mass of the body is supposed to be concentrated. Okay, now fun fact, center of mass can be outside the body as well. For example, any object shape of a donut which has a hollow center, then the center of mass lies at the center, which is not a part of the body. Okay, so it may lie on the body, it may not lie on the body. Now, how do you determine center of mass? Sometimes they ask you this for 2 marks. Okay, so to determine center of mass, there are 2 methods. If the object has a regular shape, then we balance it. Okay, we balance it, and the point where it balances is the center of mass of the object. Okay, so the point where it balances is the center of mass of the object. You cannot write COM, I'm just too lazy to write it. If it is irregular shaped, then we use a plumb line method. Now, what's a plumb line method? Suppose this is the shape of the object. So we take a stand, okay, and we take a thread with some load at the bottom. This setup is a plumb line, okay, similar to a pendulum. Now you will have to make 2 holes, minimum 2 holes on this. Okay, let me make 4 randomly, A, B, C, D. Okay, suppose I suspended initially from point A and then I place a plumb line. Wherever the object comes to rest, I will draw the path of this plumb line. So suppose it is like this. Then I suspend it from point B. I will repeat the same method. I will suspend it from point B. It will swing, come to rest in certain position. I will again draw the path of the plumb line. Wherever the 2 lines intersect, that is the center of mass of the object. Okay, so sometimes they ask you how many lines are required. You will draw it, or rather how many points, from how many points will you suspend the object? You will write minimum 2. Are we clear how to determine center of mass of the object? The next thing that they ask is center of mass and stability. Now this center of mass is very important when it comes to stability of an object. Okay, you have to remember this. They will ask you how are you going to make an object more stable. So for an object to be more stable, the center of mass should be closer to the bottom. Okay, it should be close to the bottom or the base of the object. First point. Second point, the base area. The base area should be more. Okay, this comes for 2 marks. Sometimes in MCQs they will give you an object and they will tell you find out a case in which the object will not topple, okay, or will not fall over, and they will give you 4 diagrams. So diagram 1, then diagram 2, something like this they'll give you, and the center will be marked. So you have to draw a perpendicular from the center and see if the center of mass or this line which you have drawn moves outside this base area, then the object will fall down. Okay, if it is within the base area, then it will come back, okay, or it will not fall. So this comes for 1 mark in MCQ. Are we clear? So very important in determining the stability of the object. Remember, center of mass of the object will be more towards the heavier side. So if there's an object like this, or rather wait, if there is an object like this, then I know the heavier side is over here, which means the center of mass will be somewhere over here. Okay, just for reference I'm showing this. So this is what normally they ask you in this subtopic of center of mass. The next topic is moment of a force. Okay, now suppose we have a rule. If they ask you to determine the center of the mass of the rule, then you will pivot it at the center. If it balances, that's the center of mass. This comes in ATP. Okay? Now suppose I don't pivot it at the center. Suppose this is the rule, I pivot it over here. Then what will happen? We all know that the rule is going to rotate about a fixed point. That rotation is because of this weight which is acting from the center. So this rotation produced because of this weight, or rather force, is known as moment of a force. Okay, so moment of the force is defined as turning effect of a force. And how do you find moment of a force? The formula is force into perpendicular distance from the pivot. Very important. Okay, so suppose the mass of this rule will be given. Suppose a 10 or 100 gram, you convert this to kg, find out the weight comes out to be 1 Newton. This distance you find out, multiply them, that is the moment. Which means to balance it, I need the same moment on the other side of the pivot. And this principle is known as principle of moments. So for an object to be in equilibrium, or for an object to be at rest, there are two things required. One, the clockwise moment, or the total clockwise moment, because there might be multiple forces acting, should be equal to total anti-clockwise moment. Okay, this is the first point. Second, the total upward force should be equal to the total downward force. Okay, this is one downward force. The pivot will exert some upward force, and if the forces are the same, then this is going to be in equilibrium. These 2 points, 70% of the time it comes. So moment, the first question, the first sub question of moment is always write down the factors, or rather 2 points which determines that the object is in equilibrium, or 2 conditions for a body to be in equilibrium for 2 marks. So this is very important, that the total clockwise moment should be equal to total anti-clockwise moment, and the total upward force should be equal to total downward force. In fact, the numericals will also be based on the same 2 points. Are we clear, bachas? So the types of numericals, one will be a simple numerical where they give you one known, one unknown forces. Sometimes they give you 2 forces which are known. Suppose over here, one force is here, the other force is here. Suppose this is F1, this is F2. They will give you the distance D2, and this total distance you have to take. Remember, it is always the distance from the pivot D1, and then they will give you some value of this force F3, which is at a distance D3. Okay, now either they will give D3 missing or F3 missing. Then they will tell you to find moment because of F2. Then you do F2 into D2. This is moment because of F2. They will tell you, suppose this is 3 Newton. They will tell you find the moment because of 3 Newton load. Okay, and this moment is clockwise or anti-clockwise? Anti-clockwise, correct? You always draw an arrow towards the pivot. This is clockwise. This is anti-clockwise again. Then bachas, this F1 D1 is also providing the same anti-clockwise moment. Not the same, I mean in the same direction. So my total anti-clockwise moment is going to be this. And this total anti-clockwise moment has to be equal to F3 D3. Okay. So from here, bachas, these terms will be given. These values will be given. And either of the two will be given. Either F3 will be given, you will have to find D3, or D3 will be given, you will have to find F3. Okay, this question will come for around 4 marks, sometimes 4 to 6 marks. Then bachas, you see what we have done? We have equated the first point. Total clockwise moment equals total anti-clockwise moment. Then they will ask you how much is the force exerted by the pivot. Force by pivot. Then we use the second point, that total upward force is equal to total downward force. So beta, force by the pivot is equal to F1 plus F2 plus F3. All the 3 downward forces you add. That is the force exerted by the pivot. Are we clear? Many times kids get confused with moments and forces. Okay. So moment is product of force and perpendicular distance from the pivot. Okay, the last part, you don't have to add the moments, you only have to add the forces. This will come for 1 mark. So 2 mark based on this, around 4 mark question to find F3 or D3, so 4, 6, and 1 mark question over here to find the force exerted by the pivot. So around 7 mark question will come in the paper based on this. Okay, so this is what you have to remember about moments. This is one type of problem. Another type of problem is where they give you 2 unknown forces, but they will give you 1 known force. Okay, so here is an object. They will tell you that this object is supported with 2 ropes. Okay, the rope has tension T1, this has tension T2, or they might just give 2 pivots over here exerting some upward forces. Then we all know that from the center the weight of this rod is acting. Okay, in such cases beta, now these are 2 unknown forces, this is a known force. Remember, they will tell you that principle of moments is applicable or this rod is in equilibrium. Okay, then they will tell you to find T2. So if they tell you to find T2, then you can keep T1 as pivot. Now if my T1 is pivot, can I say this T2 is providing anti-clockwise moment with this distance, suppose D2. Okay, so T2 D2 anti-clockwise moment will be equal to this clockwise moment, W into suppose X. Okay, weight will be given, this is half of the distance, T2 is unknown, D2 is known, so you can find T2. So Wx upon D2. After you have got T2, they will tell you to find T1. Then use the same logic that the total upward force is equal to downward force. Then your T1 will be W minus T2. Okay, or they might tell you that find T1 first. Then if they're telling you to find T1, keep T2 as the pivot. Then you find T1. The logic remains the same. T1 into D2, this distance will be equal to the moment because of W. Now this distance you have to consider. Okay, suppose Y. So Wy. Then you can easily find T1. That's Wy upon D2. After you have found out T1, they will tell you to find T2 using the same logic. So the method remains the same. Okay, normally kids have a problem or difficulty while doing such questions. Okay, remember when they have said that the rod is in equilibrium, you can find out moments at any point. It will still come out to be the same, but since in the question they will mention which point to keep as pivot. Okay, so you take the other unknown force and you equate it with weight. Okay, this is the next type of moment question which normally comes for again 6 to 8 marks. Then the next part is about elasticity and Hooke's law. Okay, elastic objects are objects which will resist the change in shape, or if they undergo change in shape, they will regain the original dimensions. Okay, plastic objects do not regain the original dimensions. Where do we use this? When we are doing F versus X graph. Okay, that is Hooke's law. So Hooke did an experiment where he found out that force is proportional to extension. Okay, so when you plot a graph of anything which is directly proportional, this is what they ask you for 2 marks. They will give you a graph something like this. Okay, F and X, and they will tell you, they will mark a point A. They will tell you what tells you that F is proportional to X till point A. Then you write these 2 points. Okay, it will be for 2 marks. That the graph is a straight line and it is passing through origin. These 2 marks. The same they can ask you for Ohm's law. Okay, over there as well we have V proportional to I. So wherever they have a direct proportionality question of graph, the graph should always be a straight line and it should pass through origin. This comes in the exam for 2 marks. Okay, so beta, if I have to write an equation, it will be F equals Kx, where K is the spring constant and this K will be F upon X. So the SI unit will be Newton per meter, but since we use small springs, it will be Newton per millimeter or Newton per centimeter for us with the values that they will give. Okay, so they sometimes will give you a table of f and x, suppose 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and extension, obviously for no load extension will be 0, always remember this. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 5 and 6. This is 11 and this is 20. Look at for these values. For every Newton increase in load initially, the extension is increasing uniformly by 2, which means till this point Hooke's law is obeyed. And beyond this point, Hooke's law is not obeyed, which means F is not equal to Kx. Okay. Now, what they will give you, they will tell you to find the extension for 2.5 Newton load. So what you do, first you find spring constant. Okay, you take any two values, you find spring constant. Then you have K. You have F as 2.5. Get the value of X. Okay, what is important over here is to remember, when load is 0, extension is also 0. Okay, this is what you have to remember. Then the next part, which is an FAQ over here, is again from the graph. Just a minute. Yeah, they will give you a load extension graph. Okay, F and X. They will give you 2 points, point A and point B. They will tell you what is point A or what is point B. Remember, if the point is on the straight line, okay, then it is my limit of proportionality. And if the point is on the curve, and that point is the elastic limit. So are we clear with this? Even this comes in the exam sometimes for 1 mark. Okay, so this was about Hooke's law and stretching compression. The next part of the topic is pressure in solids. You have to remember, pressure in solids is force per unit area. Okay, so the SI unit becomes Newton per meter square, which is known as Pascal. So 1 Pascal is when a force of 1 Newton acts on the area on area of 1 meter square. 2 Pascal would be 2 Newton on 1 meter square, and so on. Your denominator will always be unit. Okay, normally you don't have much of pressure in solids question. They ask you either pressure in liquids or pressure in gases. So pressure in fluids, the formula becomes pressure equals rho gh, where rho is the density, this h is the depth, okay, or height of the liquid column, or height of liquid column above you. Okay, greater the density, greater is the pressure, greater the depth, greater is the pressure. This is what they ask you in MCQs. Okay, over here in this case, you can equate pressure in area, that your pressure is directly proportional to force. Heavier the object, more is the pressure, and pressure is inversely proportional to area, which means greater the area, less is the pressure. Are we clear? Now from here, bachas, I can easily say that your density is equal to pressure upon GH, which means your density is inversely proportional to height. This they normally use in a manometer or barometer. We'll talk about it when we do manometer and barometer as well. Okay, that's ahead. The next part is pressure in gases. Okay, gas molecules move randomly. You have to remember, this is the molecular theory for pressure exerted by gas molecules. So you're supposed to write that gas molecules move randomly. Okay, they collide with the walls of container. When they collide with the walls of the container, they exert force. This force upon area is pressure. This comes for 2 marks. If they talk about explain with respect to momentum of gas molecules, question with respect to momentum, how gas molecules exert pressure, this comes in the exam for 3 to 4 marks. Then you kids are going to write that gas molecules move in random motion. The first point remains the same. So random motion. Next point, you write that they collide with the walls of the container and bounce back. They collide and bounce back. Okay, now you have to remember momentum is a vector quantity. So when the molecules collide and bounce back, there is a change in velocity because direction of velocity changes. Velocity is also vector. Okay, so velocity changes. Now this change in velocity will produce a change in momentum. Okay, therefore momentum changes, and this change in momentum upon time produces force. This force upon area is pressure. Okay, so this question, if it comes, the molecular theory will come for 3 to 4 marks in the exam. This is how gas molecules exert pressure. Then they will ask you the relation between pressure exerted by gas molecules and the volume of the container, which is also known as Boyle's law. Okay, then you are supposed to remember, as volume increases, the pressure decreases and vice versa, which means pressure is inversely proportional to volume. So the graph of pressure and volume would be a curve like this. Okay, it will not meet the x-axis, something like this. Or, okay, if I have to plot a graph of pressure and 1 upon volume, then the graph will be something like this. Okay, this is what you have to remember. Which means beta, your product of pressure and volume should be constant. Where do we use this? They will give you a table. Okay, they will give you table, pressure, volume, very similar to what we did for F and X. Okay, they will give you some values of pressure, P1, P1, P2, P3, some values of volume, V1, V2, V3, and they will tell you to check if this is obeying Boyle's law or no. Then what you do, you multiply P1 with V1, you multiply P2 with V2, and you multiply P3 with V3. If the values are coming out to be the same, it means it is obeying Boyle's law. Okay, this will come in the exam for around 2 marks. Are we clear? Then based on the same, you will have numericals, where you will have to use this formula, P2, V2, for around 2 marks. Okay, sometimes they will give the statement that find the volume of gas which has escaped the container. Then beta, remember, this P2 is the volume or is the pressure inside, which means this V2 is the volume which is left inside. So for the volume which has escaped, you have to do V2 minus V1. Okay, which one is a greater one? You take it and you subtract the lower value from the greater value. This question, where they tell you normally to find the volume of gas escaped, comes for 3 marks, where they have 1 mark for finding this. Okay, so this is about Boyle's law. Sometimes they will ask you how increase in temperature increases pressure. Increase in temperature increases pressure. So the molecular theory is, as temperature increases, molecules gain kinetic energy. Okay, which means the speed increases. So this increase in speed increases the momentum, and this change in momentum upon time also increases. Thus the force exerted increases, which means your pressure will increase. Okay, or you can write that the rate of collision increases, thus more force exerted. Either you can write in terms of momentum, or you can write rate of collision will increase, thus more force, thus more pressure. Okay, this also comes in the exam sometime for 2 marks. The next part is atmospheric pressure and barometer. So barometer is a device used to measure atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure is the pressure exerted by the envelope of air around you. Okay, and the value comes out to be normally 1 into 10 raised to 5 Pascal. Okay, now what's a barometer? A structure where we have a trough partially filled with mercury. Okay, a tube which is 1 meter long filled with mercury. You will see that the moment this sealed end is opened, the liquid level falls until a certain height, and this height comes out to be 76 centimeter, which means your atmospheric pressure equals 76 centimeter of mercury. okay, or 760 millimeter of mercury. Now if atmospheric pressure increases, this is what they ask in MCQs. If the atmospheric pressure increases, then the mercury is forced to go in. So this is the height, bachas, that we take. The height of liquid in the tube and the height of liquid in the trough. So if atmospheric pressure increases, the height of mercury in the tube will increase. If atmospheric pressure decreases, then the mercury will flow out. The level of liquid in the trough increase, in the tube decreases, so the height will decrease. This is what they ask in MCQs. Okay. Then they will ask you sometimes if the liquid is replaced. We have normally mercury. Okay. If the liquid is replaced with less dense liquid, what will happen to height? Then if you remember, we had correlated density and height. Where did it go? Over here. No, sorry, wait. Here. Density and height are inversely proportional. So if you replace it with a less dense liquid, then the height is going to increase. This comes for 2 marks. Okay, or sometimes 1 mark. Are we clear with this, bachas? Sometimes they give you that what is the pressure over here at this point? They will label it as X. So since it is vacuum, pressure over there is 0. But then sometimes they tell you that there is some pressure being exerted over here. Why? Then you write down that there are some air particles, which means this height is not proper. Or they might twist the question that the height normally should come out to be 76 centimeter, but it is less than that. Why? So you write either the mercury is contaminated because my pressure depends on density. Mercury contaminated, which means density is not the same, or you write that there is some pressure being exerted over here, which means this is not vacuum, or there are air particles at the top. Okay, this is about atmospheric pressure and barometer. The last instrument is a U-tube manometer, okay, which looks something like this. It will have a rule in the middle. When both the ends are open, you will see that the height level is the same. Why? Because the atmospheric pressure acting is the same. So first question will be, why is level of liquid the same? This will be for 1 mark. So you write that pressure acting in both the arms is same, or atmospheric pressure acting on both arms is the same. Okay. Then they will connect this to an external supply of gas. Okay, if the pressure of gas is more, this level of liquid will go down and the level of increase will be the same, provided the pressure of gas is more. If the pressure of gas is less, this level will move up and the level in the liquid in the other arm will go down. Then they will tell you how much is the excess, or they will tell you to find this height difference. Okay, suppose this is at 2, this is at 5, then my height difference comes out to be 3. Okay, centimeter or millimeter, anything they can give you, that depends upon the unit of this rule. Then they tell you to find out the pressure of the gas supply. Okay, then you have to remember pressure of gas is equal to atmospheric pressure plus this height. This is if pressure of gas is more than atmosphere, more than atmospheric pressure. If it is less, then pressure of gas is given by atmospheric pressure, which is 76 centimeter of mercury minus the H. If pressure of gas is less, they ask you this in MCQs for 1 mark. Okay, so you will get pressure in centimeter or millimeter. If they tell you to find pressure in Pascal, convert the H into meters and then use the formula rho GH, where rho is the density of the liquid. Again they will ask you, suppose we are using water, then they will tell you if water is replaced by mercury, how will the height vary? So density of mercury is more, which means my height will be less. Okay, so I hope this topic of pressure, the revision part, is clear to you all. Thank you.